When you picture Antarctica, what do you see? I bet it's this huge, quiet continent of just ice and snow, right? It's supposed to be the last pristine place on Earth, totally untouched by us. Well, that's what we all thought anyway.
So let's get right into it, because a new study has found something in that perfectly pure, fresh snow, something that has absolutely no business being there. It really makes you rethink what we know about our planet's most remote corner.
So what is this unwelcome discovery? Well, for the very first time, scientists have confirmed that a man-made contaminant is being found in brand new, freshly fallen snow in Antarctica.
Now, the key word here is newly. This is super important. We're not talking about pollution that got trapped in ice 100 years ago. No, this is fresh snow. It's like taking a snapshot of what's floating around in our atmosphere today.
And this is the number that made everyone's jaw drop. For every single liter of melted snow, they found an average of almost 30 microplastic particles in a place that should have absolutely zero. I mean, wow, that is a massive red flag.
So you're probably wondering, how in the world did they even find these tiny, basically invisible specks of plastic? Let's dig into the science here, because it's kind of like a cool piece of environmental detective work.
Okay, so the process was super careful. First, they went out and scooped up the top layer of fresh snow from 19 different spots. Then, back in the lab, they looked at it under a microscope to pull out all the tiny particles. And for the final step, they used this amazing technique called infrared spectroscopy, which is a fancy way of saying they shot a special light at each particle to get its unique chemical fingerprint and figure out exactly what it was.
And would you look at that, their chemical fingerprinting found that a whopping 79% of the plastic was PET. You know, the same exact stuff our plastic bottles are made of, and maybe even more importantly, what our synthetic clothes are made from. Yeah, you heard me. Fibers from our fleece jackets are literally falling out of the sky over Antarctica.
And when they looked even closer, they realized most of these particles weren't little beads or chunks. Nope, they were fibers, tiny little threads. And that gives us our first huge clue about where they're coming from.
So that leads us to the next big question in this whole mystery. We've got to trace the source. If we can figure out where these fibers began their journey, we can start to get a handle on just how big this problem is.
And it turns out the answer is both. It's coming from two directions. Some of it is local, just from the normal wear and tear on jackets, ropes, and even the flags at the science bases down there. But their models also showed that these little fibers are so light they can ride the wind for thousands of kilometers. So this isn't just a local problem, it's a global one too.
And here's the smoking gun for that local connection. The closer the researchers got to the big research stations like Scott Base and McMurdo Station, the more microplastics they found. So while some of it is definitely traveling from far away, the human footprint right there on the continent is making a real measurable impact.
Okay, so we found some plastic fibers in the snow. Why should we care? What does it actually do to Antarctica? And what does it mean for the rest of us? This is where it gets really serious.
To get the biggest threat here, we have to talk about something called the albedo effect. It's actually a pretty simple idea. Think about wearing a white shirt versus a black shirt on a hot, sunny day. The white shirt reflects the sun and keeps you cool, right? Well, Antarctica snow is like a giant white t-shirt for the planet. But what happens when you sprinkle that clean white surface with tiny, dark particles? It doesn't reflect as much light. Instead, it starts to absorb more of the sun's heat. And when the snow heats up, well, it melts faster. It's as simple as that.
And that faster melting kicks off a whole chain reaction problems. It can mess with the super delicate ecosystem down there, it creates huge headaches for the research bases built on the ice, and, on a global scale, it adds more water to our oceans, contributing to sea level rise that affects every single one of us.
Now, I know this all sounds pretty bleak, but here's the good news. The best part about science is that identifying a problem is always the first step toward fixing it. So let's talk about how we can actually turn this around. Researchers have kind of boiled it down to three main pillars of action. First, there's technology. We can put better filters on wastewater systems, especially at the research bases, to catch these fibers. Second is materials. Let's make and use gear made from fabrics that don't shed so much. And third is methodology. We need a single global standard for how we measure this pollution so we can actually tell if we're making progress. And hey, this isn't just about big institutions. These ideas apply to all of us. Simple stuff, like using special filters or mesh bags when we wash our synthetic clothes, can really help. Choosing better quality gear that's built to last helps too.
And, maybe most importantly, we can all support the sharing of this kind of information and just get smarter about these environmental issues in our own communities.
And really, that's the big takeaway here. Finding a tiny piece of plastic from a fleece jacket in a snowflake at the very bottom of the world, it's just this incredibly powerful reminder. It shows us that what we do, no matter where we are, sends ripples out across the entire globe, reaching even the most remote, most fragile places. It proves it, once and for all. The Earth is one single connected system.